welcome to Cooper Talk. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, and remember, I'm only as hip as my guest. I got to tell you, we have a great guest tonight. He's been a part of so many great TV shows. You know, it may be The Wire, or Orville, or Walking Dead, and so many more. And he has a podcast called Humble Hollywood with Chad, and my guest is Chad Coleman. How you doing, Chad?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. So I want to start. What made you decide to do a podcast?
Well, communications is something that I've always been interested in. Growing up, whether it was radio, the local DJ in Richmond, Virginia, or wanted to be a broadcaster, you know. So those things were of interest to me always. So also just the whole conundrum of being in Hollywood and trying to maintain humility. And so that was very important to me as well. And I just feel like we've lost the art of good conversation. Everything is so polarizing now, and people talk at each other instead of to each other. So I just wanted to put my foot in the ring with good, honest, nurturing conversation. I know how fulfilling it can be to have a great conversation. You think about it like from the standpoint of being on a plane, and when you sit beside someone and you end up you find this connectivity. And I just think it's really important that we find ways to connect with each other since it's so divided now.
It's funny you say that because I lived in L.A. for many years, and I'm from back east. And I remember when I lived in Burbank, and I would go to one bar, and I'm from the Philadelphia area. And when I saw someone, if they had a Phillies hat on or an Eagles hat, we would just start talking. And you're right, it would gain momentum. It would be like, oh, what part of Philly? I was in New Jersey, and everyone would say, you're not from Philly, you're from New Jersey. But you're right, there is such a diversiveness now, and it's really sad because, I mean, think back when you were younger, probably when you were a young actor too, you probably had some really engaging conversations with people who were studying with you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that was pretty much the linchpin of the experiences. Even though we had the commonality of the arts, it was all about communicating with each other. It was all about talking, whether we were talking about the play, talking about our lives, talking about our dreams. It was always about communication.
Now, who are some of the people you've had on your show? I know you have some co-hosts. I mean, give me the format of the show. What's a typical show going to be like?
Well, a typical show, my co-hosts are Dawn Noel. And speaking of Philly, Dawn's a dancer out of Philly, but she's an actor and a producer as well, and a very inquisitive person. And then Eden Sharon is Israeli, and I wanted that international perspective and just the lens that she could look through that we couldn't. So, you know, it makes for a very interesting team. And we've all known each other for quite some time, and we're also all actors. So we all are very inquisitive and have a sense of humor and strong points of view. So, and, you know, living in everything is about inclusion as far as I'm concerned. So I definitely wanted the female perspective. And the guests we've had everyone from Frankie Faison to Ernest Dickerson to Malik Yoba to an astronaut, Dan Tanney, and celebrity psychologist Jeff Gadir. We're open to the type of guests we have. I want the opportunity to showcase that I can have a conversation with anybody.
Isn't that important for my show? I've gone from, actors, musicians to TV writers. I've even had some athletes. And it's true. Good conversation is good conversation. Once you start talking to someone, if you get a certain point, I mean, a lot of times for me, I don't really write questions. I just go with the interview. And I think it should be organic. And a lot of people don't want organic. They want structure. And it's that's not what conversation is anymore.
That's correct. So, and when we have some guide points, we may have a few questions. I don't, because my style is to ask questions and listen well. If you listen well, you'll know where to go, or you'll know where the guest wants to go. So that's how it is for me. Now, Eden is more of, she likes to queue up some questions, and it's a great mix because it has a bit of both.
Now,
but it's really all about the guests.
It is. That's because, like I say, for me, people don't want to hear me, they want to hear you. I mean, people are, that's the thing.
Right.
Now, I want to ask you, how did you get into acting? I know you're from Richmond, and you've been acting for a long time, and you've booked so many roles, but when did the bug hit? Were you, because you're a big guy, I'm sure you were an athlete. I mean so many actors a lot of actors, okay, because a lot of actors are athletes, and they take a drama class, and they see all the girls, and they go, oh, the hell being an athlete.
Well, no, I was a little guy. I didn't gain size until I went into the military and started lifting weights. I was a little guy, but I was always enamored with language, storytelling. I tell people for me, tracing it back, my first public performance was actually reading Dr. Seuss out loud for the 4th grade class. And I was reading it so well, the teacher went to get the principal. Now, the principal wasn't in, so the assistant principal came in, but that was my first public performance, and I loved the feedback and the adoration, and I love language, and I love reading, so I think that was like the basis for me. And then there used to be what was it called? The Scholastic magazine, and so in English class we all had to read Scholastic magazine, and there was always a play in there, and I was always compelled to try to do it for real, and everybody's looking at me like, why are you doing that? So I didn't get into acting. Acting got into me. I think actors are born. Yes, anyone can do it. You can do it, and you can learn the skill, but true actors for me are born. So it was in me. And also, once, I started we were fortunate enough to have a high school drama teacher who had gone to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in its heyday. Now, he took what appeared to be a negative, which he did, which was him not being invited back for the second season, or for the second year. And he came home and gave all of that to some young African-American kids in Richmond, Virginia. So we were learning technique by the time I was a sophomore in high school. And I had an out-of-body experience doing a scene from A Raisin in the Sun. And it was a very dramatic scene. And what he was telling me was, son, you're doing a great job saying it, but it has to come from here. And he jammed his finger into my gut. And he said, okay, go off stage, and I don't care what you think about, but come back and fulfill the emotional obligations of the scene. And so that was substitution. And that's what we were learning right there. So whenever you have a scene where you don't feel alive in it, you use something from your personal life, and you substitute that within your mindset. And what happened was, the waterworks came, and, it was just an amazing experience that everybody was like, wow, how'd you do that? So that was it for me. By the time I was 14, 15 years old, I already knew this is it for me. This is what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. So a bit of a circuitous route to get to New York, but I got there. So, but yeah, it was amazing. And then when I was on stage, I just felt at home, and that haze over the audience, it was just magical, and just a lot of adrenaline and excitement. It was always fun, and I also love the ensemble nature of the theater, and just you end up with a lot of friendships, just as we spoke about a bit about amazing friendships. So it was fun. It's like I don't want to work for a living, so.
Well, okay, I got a question for you. You joined the military. Now, you wanted to get into acting. Now, what was your path to the military? Did that help you with the discipline in acting, or did that help you grow at all?
No. I was a video cameraman in the military. And what happened was initially I was accepted into Tisch School of the Arts. I auditioned, and at that time, I was a ward of the court of the state of Virginia. I didn't have legal parents, even though I was living with my grandmother, because had already been in the foster care system since I was 11 months old. So at a certain point, my foster parents left Richmond to go to Boston, and I chose not to go because my brothers and sisters weren't going. And so that put me in the position of being a ward of the court of the state of Virginia. So I thought I had a free ride to Tisch School of the Arts. And Ronald Reagan took the whole program off the books, and it just, threw me off the path because I couldn't afford to go. So I went to Virginia Commonwealth University, which it was a wonderful training program. But again, I'm telling you, I understood technique. I was already doing these things in high school. So I was ahead of the game. So I was bored, and I stayed for 1 year. And then I said, well, let me go in the military and get a vocation I can use in New York while I'm pursuing my career. And as I said, communications was always something I found very interesting. And I walked into the recruiter's office and just asked the question, what do you have in communications? He showed me something called 84 Foxtrot, an audiovisual specialist. And he described the terms of the job. It included a lot of travel and doing radio and television and being taught radio and television as well from every aspect, in front of the camera, behind the camera, of radio, DJ, editing, all these things. I was like, let's go. And he's like, well, you got to wait, and because the school's not going to open up to a particular time. So I said, okay, fine, I'll finish up my first year at VCU. And then off I went, and it was an amazing experience with that. I was stationed at the Pentagon initially, so Howard University was right there, and I used to do monologues for my sergeants, and like, Coleman, that's good, Coleman, do that one again, Coleman, that's good. Coleman's an actor, y'all. Watch him do it, and they were all very supportive, but they were artists as well because they were video cameramen, they were photographers, they were artists too. It just happened to be in the military. And then I called up Howard and ended up studying with the greatest teacher there, Vera Katz. And she offered me a scholarship to Howard, but I declined that, and I just worked with her privately, and she told me that, you have it, Chad, you can do this. And it cut to 2009. I'm on Broadway, and she walks by and sees my picture out in front of the theater, and she called me and she said, you did it. And I'm like, yeah, I did. You said I could. So
see, that's amazing. It's so important when you have someone who believes in you, and ending up on Broadway. But now, what was your role? I mean, people know your big break was from The Wire, but you worked a lot. What was your role when you first got to New York? I'm guessing you left. What did you like? What were you getting auditions? Was it easier for you to get an agent? Because sometimes people get an agent like that. Sometimes they can't get agents. What was your path in once you got to New York and started trying to get work?
Well, the interesting thing about it, by the time I got to New York, my high school drama teacher was in New York, pursuing his career. So he helped me get my picture and resume, and he told me about the backstage. And so the first thing I went out for, I thought I was auditioning for The Cosby Show, but it was to be a stand-in on The Cosby Show. So I had to go to Kaufman Astoria Studios, and the line was around the block, but I got it. Now, initially, there were no cell phones, so you had to call your service. And for whatever reason, I didn't think they were going to start on Monday. And so I didn't check the service till 11 at night, and they had been calling me saying, you got this, where are you? We're going to have to get someone else if you don't answer. And I never forget, the stage manager saying, hey, man, always check your service. And he said, I'm going to get you in here, though. And they did. And so I became a stand-in on the Cosby Show. So, was up close and personal with, the illustrious cast. And yeah, it was an interesting experience. He told me that it wasn't for everybody. And so for me, it was interesting to be able to watch. I didn't, I had no concept of how television was done. So all of that was fun and cool, and getting to know the cast was fun and cool. But I wanted to be on the show. So when I found out I couldn't be on the show, I really didn't want to do it anymore, because I knew how good I was, and they knew too. Because when you're rehearsing, there's monitors in everybody's dressing room, and I'm doing what Theo would do, and so they all knew, like, oh, he's really talented. So, I just didn't want to. I didn't want to be there. After a while, it just was like I wanted to perform, and when you leave on Thursday, and the stand-in leaves on Thursday, because on that Friday when they tape, they don't need you. So there was many times on the train, literally crying, like, this is not cool. I know I'm really good. And so I just moved on to, I was doing theater, children's theater, commercials, yeah, that's what I was doing mostly, off Broadway and, children's theater and commercials, things like that.
Now, how did The Wire come about? It's funny. I just talked to Delaney Williams the other night, and he said he was, he didn't know if it was going to be for one show, or he didn't know what. And he said the experience, he had met them before, but what was your experience? 'Cause I've talked to a bunch of guys from the show. What was your experience of getting that job? Because you were a working actor, but you weren't a household name yet.
I was doing tour. I was doing a national tour of a play called The Exonerated, and I was in San Francisco. And I was separated at the time from my ex-wife, and she brought my daughter out to San Francisco, and we had an amazing time. We decided to get back together. So I said, listen, guys, I'm gonna leave the tour. I got to go get a TV show. And when I got back to New York, I got an audition. There were no sides. They hadn't written the character, so they gave me some other character to read. But they liked the look, they liked the beard, and they wanted to see me again. And so when I went in, I just had an out-of-body experience. Yeah, I did it once. He gave me an adjustment. I just asked him, is he removed? And they say, yeah. And I understood that, he's a person that's kind of lost in his thoughts, and not really present for what it is he's trying to do. So then they said, okay, yeah, let's do it again. And right before I'm supposed to do it, I forgot everything I was supposed to say, which is awesome because it all just came out. And that blew them away, because it's not that often that people really have that kind of out-of-body experience. So they said, yo, we really dig you, and it's a matter of whether HBO signs off. It took a week, and then HBO signed off, and I was off and running. I knew most of the guys anyway. I was roommates with Wood Harris at one point, and we were roommates in New York in Hell's Kitchen. And so I knew the show, and I had done a reading with Idris at the Public Theater, and he told me that, man, you could be on The Wire easily. And at that time, I was clean-shaven. When I'm clean-shaven, I look like a cop. So, you don't get those more grittier roles. So the facial hair really helped out. And then I just knew so many of them, Andre Royo, and I knew Wendell Pierce, and I had met Michael Kay. And, it was my first time meeting Jamie Hector. And, we're friends now. We've been friends ever since. So most of the guys I had familiarity with, because we were all in New York doing Off-Broadway and, the hustle, the Law and Order episodes and the New York Undercover. You're not a real actor unless you did New York Undercover and Law and Order. If that ain't on your resume, you're not a real actor.
Yeah. What was the experience when you went to set? Because you're going to set, you know the guys, you know it's a good show,
Yeah.
you know the writing's
Yeah.
great. You know you're going in and you're saying, okay, I'm not going into some crappy show. I mean, an actor always
Right.
gives it all, but sometimes you look at the script and you go, oh, you know. But what was it like? I mean, do you feel a more peacefulness when you go in, or are you a little more antsy because you're like, this, I have to deliver?
No, completely at home, and Idris grabbed me, picked me up, and I called him the prophet from that point on, because that had been a year since the time he'd said to me that you could do it, that you could be on the show easily. And so I remember him picking me up. I'm like, whoa, dude, wait a minute, why are you picking me up? But okay, thank you, brother. And just seeing Wendell and, you know, David Simon and Ed Burns and Nina and George, they're all just down to earth, you know, grounded people, and everybody from Miss Debbie and makeups and everyone in costume. It was just it was a family-like vibe to the show. And being from Virginia, this is the DMV, so, you know, I was extremely familiar with all of that energy and vibe, and I understood the role, and we just hit the ground running. You know, great directors, and you know, everybody from Seeth Mann and Ernest Dickerson, and so it was just a real beautiful experience, and brought my family down, and you know, we got the brownstone, and you know, it was an amazing experience. It truly was.
Now, as an actor, what do you think you brought to that character? What did you bring to Cutty as an actor? I mean, what did you draw from? Because he was a complex character, and you know, there was a lot going on. Where did you pull from on that?
I just, like I said, his uncertainty his vulnerability was where it was for me. His vulnerability and his aspiration to change his life, which is huge. So I did feel a huge responsibility, because I know that most guys are more like Cutty than they are any of the rest of those characters. They're guys who were in it, spent some time incarcerated, come out, and they're trying to change their lives. So I understood a deep responsibility for that depiction. But it was his depth and vulnerability of the man that really registered, and his heart and his desire to have a positive impact on a community that he was also part and parcel to wreaking havoc on. So when I believe in redemption, and I believe in second and third chances, and I believe that you can change your life if you have the will to do it. And also, I was introduced to Calvin Ford. Calvin Ford runs Upton Boxing Gym, and his life was actually what my storyline. His life was based on the storyline. The name of the character is another dude that was kind of notorious. So they they gave him the name of Dennis Cutty Wise, who was a bona fide killer for real. But they gave me the storyline of Calvin Ford, who used to be involved in the drug trade and was involved in one of the biggest heroin busts in the history of the East Coast. And so he was incarcerated for 16 years and in federal prison, and came out and changed his life and began to teach the kids boxing. And today he is the trainer for world champ Gervonta Tank Davis. And when I used to go to the gym back then, I would just spend all day, sitting with him and watching him and watching him interact with the kids. And there was this little 7-year-old boy who was wailing away, punching. And we were like, who is that? He said, that's going to be the champ. That's Tank. That's Tank. And it came true. So Calvin was an amazing influence as well. And because he was right there, very available, and it was all live and in living color and true. So I definitely wanted to represent him and make him proud as well. And we're still friends to this day. So I just talked to him a couple of days ago.
That's great. So okay, so when the wire ends, you're in this great project. You met the guy you play. Where is your mind at when the wire ends?
I thought it was on. I thought it's over, baby. I got him now. the roles are going to come piling in, baby. They're not going to be able to stop it. The scripts are going to pile up. No, that did not happen. So,
now, how'd you end up on Broadway?
It was very humbling. How did I end up on Broadway? Well, I auditioned for Bartlett's Share, and I was in California at the time. And I ended up booking the role, man. And I love August Wilson. I've done majority of his plays. He's just a prolific. He was one of the most prolific playwrights. Period. African American or not, he was just a real bona fide artist, and he wrote some incredible plays, and that always touched me. And I love Everyday Man. On a certain scale, Cutty was like an everyday man. Once he turned the corner, became an everyday man. And I love everyday people as heroes, because that's very real, and the size and scale of people's lives, we sometimes look past certain people, but everybody has an amazing story and an amazing opportunity to be heroes. And so that's what I loved. And Joe Turner's come and gone. Harold Loomis, you talk about complicated, brother. Harold Loomis was a deeply complicated character to play. So I just simply auditioned, bro, and ended up getting it. That's how that happened. And then the next thing you know, the president of the United States, the former president, Barack Obama, and the first lady are at the show, and we get a standing ovation from them. And then we're all waiting for them to come backstage. But little did we know they couldn't come back because it's the oldest theater on Broadway, and there was only one exit. So the Secret Service was like, no, we're not going to have them. We're not going to, because the whole audience has to wait. So they didn't come back. And then I'm coming out of my dressing room, and this woman just comes up to me with tears in her eyes and kisses me in the mouth and says, "You're a great actor." They wanted to come back, but the Secret Service wouldn't let them. And it was Meryl Streep. And bro, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, well, Meryl, you're the president of actors, so that's absolutely way more than enough for me that you thought that of the performance. So, it was.
I wanted to ask you, what goes through your mind as an actor when your first night on Broadway? I mean, is it butterflies? And I know how nervous energy sometimes leads to a better performance, but what went through your mind? Because it's Broadway.
Well, man, and be honest with you, it was a hell of a role. So we were still working things out. First time we went in front of the audience, it was really about trying to calibrate this character in a way to where, because there's something very accessible about me, and this dude needed to feel absolutely impenetrable. And he's not a people person at all. And he's going through a tremendous amount at the turn of the century. So calibrating it to really get there, that was the hardest part, because I shaved my face and there's just a baby face kind of look to me. And, I had the right energy and everything, but it was still about really calibrating to really, really, really unlock the role. So that's what was going on. And it took some previews for us to really find it. And I know people go, they think you're just absolutely perfectly ready. And what it felt like in rehearsal is not what it felt like when we got on the actual stage. And so we were working hard, especially myself and Denai Guerrera, because she was in it as well as Ingenue Ellis and, a lot of other amazing people, Ernie Hudson and Andre Holland. And we had a superb cast, Marsha Stephanie. We had a really superb cast. So, but it was working to really unlock it, to get it to that place where people, where you felt this real aloofness from him, where people didn't know where he was coming from, and kind of on a certain level, you get no love from the audience. So it was a tough role to play. And the validation only comes by the end of the play. But you also it's just so many layers of, when you're dealing with race at that time, and when you're dealing with something called peonage, where a black man could be taken off the road if he's by himself and he's got no money in his pocket. They could just arrest him and make him and put him in an encampment and make him work for all these different companies, tobacco or rice or cotton. All of that was very, very real. So it was a heavy, heavy, heavy load to carry, and it wore me out.
Well, it's funny, you've been on Broadway and The Wire, and I always, I interview a lot of actors, and I look at IMDb's, and when you look up your IMDb, this is to me a signal that you are very, very talented, which I knew because I seen you. But if you look at IMDb, you went from I Hate My Teenage Daughter to The Walking Dead, which are two completely different roles. How do you? Which came with the sitcom come first?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I mean, to me, that was as close to me being me as I've ever gotten, except for Klyden, because I am an alien. That's where I was completely typecast as Klyden. That's absolutely, I'm an alien all day, every day. But I Hate My Teenage Daughter, that dude, because I'm a father. I was a father, a divorced father. And, my personality, that's my personality. I play all these deep roles and drama and everything, but I have a serious sense of humor. And I grew up, humor was a huge part of growing up. And I was like the class clown, and I was the family, Mr. Entertainment for the family. And so all of that got to come out in that role. And then subsequent roles after that, like Always Sunny in Philadelphia and the Goldbergs and stuff like that. Now,
what's it like on the set of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia? I did background for that show once. It was an MMA scene, and I played the ref when they made that one Tiger Juice. And I'm not the ref. I was the guy, and I raised the weigh-in. And it was right. Seemed like a loose set. And then, and I was in another scene earlier when it was in a cruise ship, and DeVito was in it. What was it like on that set? I mean, because they just seem like fun guys.
What you see is what you get. Okay. No, what you see is what you get. That's how it is. Yeah, it's loose, it's open, it's fun, it's fast, it's, let's try it this way, let's try it that way. What do you want to try? Okay, let's do what's written, It's just wide open, and the guys are a lot of fun. What you see is what you get. That's who they are. They're playing themselves for sure. And you get to show up, and they trust me because we had done a pilot for a sitcom for Fox, and it was going to be their network deal at that time, and it was called Boldly Going Nowhere, and I was like, guys, why did you name it that, first of all? you started out the gate wrong. But it was a spaceship comedy, and I was the security on the ship. Tony Hale was in it, Lennon Parham, Artemis, and Glenn was in it as well, and it just didn't go. But having that experience, because they just knew me from The Wire, but Charlie Day was really the one that said, "Well, I love him on The Wire, so guess what? We're gonna see him, and let's see what happens." And I ended up beating what's my man's name? I ended up beating him out for the role. He was Creed back in the day, and I don't know why I was facing his name.
Carl Weathers?
Man. Yeah.
Okay.
So I ended up beating Carl out for that one. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought so. I remember seeing him at the audition. I was like, oh, wow, man. Grew up with this guy. We were going for the same role. Okay. And, it worked out, and it also worked out in terms of the relationship I have with the guys. So, yeah, we're all very much friends today. And Charlie was responsible for me getting horrible bosses as the bartender in the all-black club that they came into trying to find somebody to kill their boss. And then also they invited me to be a part of Always Sunny. And that was really cool because Danny DeVito, I'm a huge fan of Danny DeVito's for obvious reasons. And the first thing he said is, "My family have watched you every Sunday." And to find out that he was a fan of The Wire was like, oh, man, that's just too cool, bro. So
you have this background in comedy, but after The Teenage Daughter, how did The Walking Dead come about? Because that's completely different. I mean, that's like, you can't get more opposite from a sitcom than The Walking Dead.
Yeah, and the thing I also want to say, though, is when we were taught the craft of acting, range was important. You had to be able to play a lot of different roles in school. That was a prerequisite for you being involved. You got to be able to play more than one thing. So I think that prepared me. People wouldn't even know, like, I was in The Odd Couple. I was Felix Unger in The Odd Couple back in that Neil Simon play, and that became a hit TV show. So yeah, range has always been the thing. Versatility has always been the thing. So what happened was, the first I heard of it was people were anticipating Tyreese and who should play it. That was on the internet. And they were already saying that I should play it. It was either me or Idris, and I think there was one other guy, maybe Malik Yoba. But Robert Kirkman, God bless him, saw me in The Wire and said, "That's Tyreese." And that's what he told the network. He told AMC. And they said, "Yeah, okay, cool, but we're going to see other people." He's like, "Yeah, I know, but it's Chad Coleman." "Okay, cool, fine, but we're going to see other people." "I know, but it's Chad Coleman." And it played out that way. So I read for it. I read, again, there were different sides. That wasn't the character sides. But I read it once. They came back with one adjustment, and I booked the role.
Now, what was it like on that set? Because once again, it's a different time. It's action. It's a lot of action. For an actor, what is it like on a set like that? Because when you see it, it's all over the place.
Yeah, it's an adrenaline rush, and then you have all these varied personalities coming together, and everybody's passionate, everybody's smart, everybody's funny. So you're just having a good time, and the action stuff just gets your blood flowing, and we love make believe. So who wouldn't want to take a hammer and smash a walker in the head? Of course you do. And then the level of drama and sociology involved with the show, and how people, what happens to a human being when their backs are up against the wall like that, and how do you maintain love and relationships? And so having someone like Sonequa Martin Green with me, man, it was exquisite, bro. It was beautiful. she was my sister right away, even though she told me don't call her baby. And I said, baby, you don't understand. I'm from Richmond, Virginia. We say baby, I don't mean it like that. and we connected right away. And, I mean, Denai was there, and so like as soon as I walked on set, she's like, "What the f are you doing here? You trying to follow me around?" Because we had done Broadway together, and everybody else was just warm and inviting. Andrew Lincoln, incredibly warm and inviting. All of the Greg Nicotero and Gail Ann Hurd, all Mike Satrasemis. He was the DP at the time. It was a very inviting situation. And my man, I don't know, I shouldn't be spacing on his name either. I'm tired today. But Scott Wilson was just absolutely, it was a dream. It was a dream to work with Scott Wilson. That God rest that legend's soul. I knew who he was, and I knew his resume. And for me and him to have moments where we would just find things that weren't in the script and just looking at each other and just living in that deep, just satisfying way as an actor. It's when you're working with somebody who can talk to you without words. It was amazing. So
now, how did you know then when you were going to die? Were you expecting it? I always wonder, because everyone says it's that awful when you get called into the producer's room. It's like you sit there and they want to see you. What happened with your character, and did you see it coming?
What was going on was, and our fearless leader, he always, Andrew Lincoln, Big Link was truly the leader of that show. And so it was happening. People were getting killed off and blindsided by it. And he was like, yo, this has to stop. You don't understand. People are making decisions about their lives. You've got to tell them. And he campaigned for that, and he made that happen. So I knew, because actually Beth, everybody was tore up that, she did not know. And she read that script. It found out that way, and that was just so I was after her. So they called me in, and I didn't see it coming because I was blowing them off. Like, what do you want, man? I'm busy doing my life right now. What do you need to talk to me about? And it was like, and when I got there, I still didn't land. I thought they were joking, and then Scott Gimple, he teared up, and I was like, oh, wow, okay, this is really real. And then he proceeded to tell me what that episode was going to be like. And I was like, all right, let's roll. I've never been, I expect that. And you know what I mean? It's an industry of uncertainty, and longevity not everyone is blessed with the kind of longevity that some of the characters on the show were blessed with. So, I just value the experience, and I keep it moving. And I was that death scene to me stands up to anything that's ever been done in the following 11 or so years. They continued on, so that's why it was an amazing experience. I'll always be a part of the family, and it's the gift that keeps on giving. For through cons and. Yeah, you just keep it moving, and I feel honored to be in an elite club with Seth Gilliam and Lawrence Gilliard, the only two, the three of us are the only ones who were on The Wire and The Walking Dead. So
see, that's good company. Now the Orville, how'd that come about? Because I know you did voices on The Family Guy. Was that before the Orville? Is that how you got to know Seth, or how did the Orville come about? Because that's a great show.
I think Seth was a bit of a fan to that certain degree, and I tested for Borders. So it was between me and Peter for Borders. And, Peter has that voice that, he can just wake up and read the phone book and And so, you spend a lot of time saying, like, in Sector 12, da 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 da, so his voice is totally more suited for that. And so Peter got that, and then they went, Klyden wasn't in the pilot. So when it came around for the pilot, they could not find the guy, because most guys don't know the trick to it is treat it like it's classical theater, and you'll get it right. And most guys in Hollywood, they don't know that because they've never even been on the stage. They've never read a classical play. So he just came and offered it to me. It was like, what are we doing? Get Chad. Chad's Klyden. And it's been a match made in heaven. I love that role, and I always wanted to be in prosthetics since, like, Galaxy Quest, and that amazing actor, he just recently passed, who played the alien in that. And you'll find in throughout history a bit where you see very strong, accomplished, serious actors, taking on the prosthetic deal and playing an alien. So I was excited about that. And then once we hit the set, the chemistry between Peter and I, and the chemistry with Seth and the rest of the cast, he's always been nothing but gracious and just floored by my ability. So that floored me, that Seth became that kind of fan of my work. He was just really happy with what I was bringing to that character.
Now, have you shot Girls Five Eva yet? I know you're doing a guest.
Yeah,
I read a guest. I really liked that show. Me and my wife watched the first season. It was just fun. Like, it's one of those when we sat down and we go, let's watch this. It's one of those shows because they're not real. You can watch it in like a week. But so I saw you on it. What was the experience? Because that looks like it'd just be a blast. And who's your character?
It is. Absolutely. I'm the lunch lord. I'm the love interest of Renee Elise Goldsberry. And Tina Fey, they showed me the email, and they were just nice enough to do that. And they were like, per casting, and in quotes, it's Tina Fey saying, I love me some Chad Coleman, which floored me. I didn't know. I had no idea. And it's funny stuff, man. And I did ADR work on some of my scenes, and it's fantastic. It's really wonderful. And the chemistry between me and Renee, it was off the chain. And Meredith and everyone is incredibly happy about that. And I'm looking forward to going to the premiere of that this coming Sunday. But it is funny stuff. So I'll be introduced in the final 2 episodes of season 2, and then I'll recur in season 3.
It must be great for you as an actor, because as you said, you are a trained actor, to be able to go between the lines of comedy and drama. We didn't talk about the Expanse, but it's something as an actor. Really, I've talked to a lot of trained actors, and they always say, acting is acting. You're good at it, and you learn. And I think it's so great that trained actors like yourself still believe in that, because Hollywood's changed a lot. The way shooting is shot. I mean, how do you feel like looking back? Do you still get on stage, or is it something you want to do again, or what's your view of stage now?
I do. No, I do. I did. I was on the stage. I did a small production that a friend of mine had written a play called Socrates, and then I actually turned it into a short as well. But it was no joke. And I was working on All American at the time, and then I was doing 4-show weekends, and I was like, who thought of that? Who said that? And it was me. And it took a minute to recalibrate. The stage is no joke, especially a black box theater kind of deal, and doing 2 shows, and also working on another television show at the time. It was very taxing. But yes, I would love to get back on the stage. It's just that conundrum of, you got to make Denzel money, so you don't have to worry about anything else. You can go and and then you get an opportunity to just exercise your artistry and not have to worry about the dollar signs and in terms of taking care of my family. So at some point I hope to get back, and I hope to win a Tony, to be honest. I hope to be able to do the type of role that will garner that kind of respect, which is why I have a crazy amount of respect for Denzel and Viola and folks like that.
Now, what's coming up for you? What's in the near future for Chad besides Girls 5 Ever? What do you have coming up?
Well, right now I'm working on the LeBron James coming of age story, playing one of the coaches that of the school that he did not attend. So I'm doing that, and I also, as well as doing Girls 5 Ever coming out, and then the Orville will be coming out in June, and then I also did some work on the Showtime series 3 Women. And I spent a lot of time working with Gabrielle Creevy. She's going to be a superstar. And that was an amazing experience, too. Just really, when you vibe and bond with people so quickly, it was pretty amazing.
That's awesome. I want to thank you for coming on. Where can we find your podcast?
Oh, right now it's not up. So you can, but if you go to Humble Hollywood W Chad, you're going to see the clips. Or you go to my IG, my Instagram at Chad L. Coleman. Either of those, you'll be able to see the clips and get a sense of what we're doing. And we're working on a deal right now.
Okay.
That's why we're not putting it all the way out. But we are going to put up a YouTube channel, so look out for that.
Well, that's awesome. People, go check out Chad. Go to IMDb. Look at his whole great body of work and go watch every one of the shows. Watch them all. Watch The Wire and watch The Walking Dead. Just watch what he's on if you're going to watch The Walking Dead. You don't want to watch the whole time. It says what years he's in. So people, go check out Chad. People, go to my website, coopertalk.net. You can find over 900 episodes. Email me, Cooper at coopertalk.net. Twitter, I'm at CooperTalk. Instagram, at CooperTalk1. And remember, with Steve Cooper, I'm only as hip as my guest. Don't forget, drink your water, eat your vegetables, take your vitamins, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Thank you.